Welcome to the Pooch Parenting Podcast, a podcast for parents with dogs. I'm Michelle Stern, a certified professional dog trainer, mom, and former teacher. Living with kids and dogs at the same time can feel like a circus. I know because I lived it too. Join us as we interview a variety of experts and parents to discuss topics that will make parenting with dogs easier, safer, and less chaotic. Also, you can love living with your dog again. I'll always keep it real, which might even mean that you hear the messiness of life in the background on occasion, but at least you know you're not alone. I am excited about today's quick episode because I had an epiphany the other day and I wanted to share it with you. I was so excited by a certain concept that I made a series of graphics about it. And the first of 4 graphics went out today on Facebook, and it's gotten a lot of likes and shares, which for my content is pretty amazing. And it felt validating. And so it made me especially excited to share this concept with all of you. So as you know, of course, I'm a dog and child specialist, and I spend a lot of my time helping families to literally manage their lives as they are raising kids and dogs together at the same time, because it feels crazy sometimes and super chaotic, and you can hardly turn your back for just a second before your child might do something ridiculous like step on your dog's back in order to reach something on the kitchen counter, right? And kids are silly and they do different things to see if they work. Dogs are the same. They try behaviors to see what works. And so these are all very normal things, but they happen in the blink of an eye. And unfortunately, we haven't figured out a way to get eyeballs on the back of our head. And so I always recommend that families implement management strategies, such as using pens or baby gates, sometimes even tethering our dog to our belt loop by clipping a leash to the dog and clipping the other end with a carabiner to your pants, or using a tether in the wall. If your child isn't mobile, this is a great way that you can keep your dog in one spot while you're sitting having tummy time on the floor with your baby. I never like the idea of a tethered dog feeling trapped, though, because then that's not really management. That's setting the dog up to fail if they don't have a means to escape. But it is one example that we can use to sometimes prevent the dog from going where it's not supposed to go, or from running over and stealing, a piece of grilled cheese out of your child's hand when they're having lunch. So the concept that I thought about the other day, I was having a client session, and she was offering a little bit of resistance to using management when I was encouraging her to set up a barrier. She, in particular, was really worried that her dog was acting predatory towards her new grandbaby. And the stakes in this case were as high as it gets, because nobody wants anything horrible to happen, especially to your brand new grandbaby. Nobody could be able to live with themselves with something like that. And so what we were talking about were different strategies to set her dog up for success and to set up the baby to be safe and happy in an environment where it won't develop a lifelong fear of dogs, etc. She was a little bit concerned because her dog had trouble whenever she put it in the back room when these guests would come over and other guests would come over. The dog would panic and dig at the wall and dig at the floor and bark and sometimes drool and sometimes urinate. So this dog had a really hard time being isolated. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this same dog will have trouble being separated, right? So I had this moment where it occurred to me that a lot of people have a misunderstanding when I tell them to separate their dog and child. I'm not necessarily saying to isolate the dog. I'm just saying to use a barrier like a baby gate or a pen to divide the space. So here's the big epiphany that I had, is that separation is not the same as isolation. Now, of course, I know this. It wasn't a new concept to me, but saying it in such clear terms is so helpful to my students and my clients and my social media audience. Because a lot of times people get upset when I say you need to separate your dog and child. And they say to me, Michelle, I didn't get a dog to send them to the basement. And I realize now that they thought that when I said to separate them, I was encouraging them to send their dog off to Siberia or something. In this case, this is not a case of out of sight, out of mind. I love using pens and gates as a way to create zones in the home so that the baby or child or toddler has a child-safe zone where they don't have to worry about the dog. They don't have to worry about getting stepped on or wagged in the face or knocked over by an excited dog. And dogs deserve a safe space too, because toddlers are so unpredictable. And a lot of dogs hate not understanding what toddlers are going to do next. And I get a lot of calls at the stage of child development where the kids are more mobile, they're running, they have big feelings, they fall down a lot. They aren't really sure what they want and what they don't want. They just know they like to yell a lot about these big feelings that they're having. And it can be a joyous time. Toddlers can be really fun, but they can be so confusing for dogs. And dogs often really need a safe zone to retreat from the chaos that comes with living with a toddler. So again, an epiphany in terms of a phrase, not in terms of a concept for me, but maybe an epiphany for my audience that separation is not the same as isolation. And by creating safe zones in the house, everybody can still see each other. You can still interact with everybody. You can play games with your dog over the barrier, for example, so they're not feeling neglected and alone. Now, some dogs still have trouble behind a barrier, but it is a lot easier to support dogs through that struggle than it is to just send them off in another room of the house. Now, I will say, though, some dogs really do need more space, and some dogs really love going to another room of the house. So while you may be isolating a dog in your guest room or your office, I don't want you to think that's a bad thing. If your dog is comfortable with it and really needs that distance and space, go for it. Use what the dog likes to offer some relief. Now, I want to direct you to my website so that you can see some examples of the images that I created as examples to demonstrate that separation is not the same as isolation. And you can get to that by going to poochparenting.net/episode 84. And I've got a few images that show different ways that you can use separation in your home to create safe zones. The first photo includes this really wonderful play area for a child. It includes a toy kitchen and some cushions for reading and some other toys. And this is safely contained so the child can play in this area and not be bothered by the dog. In the second photo of the series, we have a little baby who is sitting in a bouncy seat, and just nearby is a dog that is behind a baby gate who's watching. And this is super helpful because the dog can still see everybody, but yet perhaps the parent could have an opportunity to get a load of laundry folded without the dog stealing the socks or the child undoing the folded laundry, right? Sometimes you just need a break. You need to not have to be paying attention 1,000%. Okay, the third photo in the series shows the back of a little child who's sitting at a counter, or maybe a raised table, and they're eating a meal, and there's a pen around the child in a stool, so that the dog can't get in and steal any of the child's food. I love this. Super simple. So easy to prevent a dog from having bad behavior around mealtime or stealing food from a child by just preventing the dog from having access. The dog, of course, can still wait and watch as the child might drop food. And of course, they can clean up afterwards if that's okay with you. But that's a really simple strategy. And finally, the last photo in the series shows an infant on the floor doing tummy time. And it shows a dog in a soft-sided crate. The door of the crate is actually open, but the dog is resting there. And the parent is taking the photo from on the floor where the parent can remind the dog to stay in. The parent is not leaving the room. If the dog is in a crate with the door open, the parent would never, ever leave while the baby was on the floor. She's a dog trainer and somebody that I've worked with, so I know this for sure. One benefit of a soft-sided crate is that there are no holes or wires for a child to stick their fingers through. So that's really nice, and it does provide the dog some nice distance and protection as well. So those are some examples of ways that you can divide up your space into safe zones so that you are separating, but not isolating, your dogs and kids. I hope you found this helpful. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Pooch Parenting Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and leave a review. But even better yet, tell a friend. Are you in some moms groups, perhaps? Or maybe you're friendly with your pediatrician. Please let them know that resources like this exist, because the information that I share with my people goes beyond what most baby books offer, and a lot of parents need support. You'd be doing them a favor. Thanks again. Have a great day.